What up, is Marcus Dynasty Football Dads? We have the next 3 days of being some of the most important Dynasty fantasy football analytics, especially when it comes to running backs and wide receivers. If you've ever had a question, should I draft the running back over the wide receiver or the running back? What are my chances? If I had no names, no tape, nothing, just analytics, what are my chances of having a successful fantasy football player at the running back position, at the wide receiver position? And should I start trading away some of these players, whether it's Nick Chubb, whether it's Kenny Golladay, Cortland Sutton, if Jonathan Taylor? Hey, is it a sell now opportunity? Well, these are going to give you some chances, or give you some information on what you're expected to get on an average draft class. This is the last 6 draft classes, actually 7, 2015 to 2021, right? 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Yeah, 7. I did that right. For a math person, that almost threw me for a loop here. So we're going to start with running backs today. We're going to go through wide receivers tomorrow, and then on Saturday, we're going to throw it all together and really dive through what you're expected to get. It's going to be in an important 3 days here for you Dynasty Fantasy Football folks, and it's really going to help you. And then we're going to go into some mock drafting time, which I'm excited for because the draft is only a short time away. So, running backs. And so how this is split up, we have 3 different categories, and then we have 3 different categories. We have round 1 ADP. This is average draft position in Dynasty Fantasy Football. This is not average draft position, or this is not the draft position that they are in the NFL draft. So we have round 1, round 2, and round 3. So you're really talking about the top 36 picks. And then you have RB 1, 2, and 3.5 point PPR, which is, again, top 12, top 24, top 36. So 12, 24, 36. We got, all right? We're going to start with round 1 ADPs of running backs like DeAndre Swift. We still have the free signed jersey. All you have to do is be subscribed for a chance to win it. All right? I mean, we're going to have to get it away sometime. I mean, we're going to get to 2K someday. Maybe before the NFL season starts here. Total players drafted, 39 running backs in the last 7 drafts. So if you think about that, that's about 5 per draft, which is actually quite a bit. I mean, you look at the 2020 season, and there was a ton of running backs drafted in that class. We have 41% of those running backs had reached RB1 status. So if you're looking at Kenneth Walker, Breece Hall, potentially Isaiah Spiller, or maybe even let's just say James Cook ends up being an average draft position of 112. You have a 41% chance that running back is going to reach RB1 status in their entire career. We did the first 3 seasons. This is entire career. Now, RBs that reach RB2 status, 64%. So you're talking 2/3 of the time that you're going to have a running back. Now, maybe Rashad Penny fits into that. Clyde Edwards-Helaire are running backs that have struggled to be into that RB2 status. And then you might have even other running backs that have had just Bishop Shanky and all. There's different running backs that we've kind of warned. Even Darius Geis, who was a top pick that ended up being nothing. This happens, but 2/3 of the time, which is not a guarantee still, but 2/3 of the time you're going to have a running back reach RB2 status in their career. And then 77% are going to reach RB3 status, 30 of 39 running backs. So 77%. So if you have an RB drafted in the average draft position in Dynasty Fantasy Football in round 1, you are looking fairly well. I mean, you're looking really well. And we're going to be comparing this to wide receivers, 2 days from now, because we're doing wide receivers tomorrow. And so the RB round 2. So this is where a lot of people start reaching for these running backs. I talked about Trey Sermon. I talked about Michael Carter. But I even saw in some of my drafts, we had the end of round 2. We had Khalil Herbert. We had Ramondre Stevenson. We had other running backs, and then even the year prior, we had Antonio Gibson. So there's other running backs that do get drafted into that that round 2 status. You'll probably see a lot of RB2 or round 2 running backs. I'm seeing Charlie James Cook. I will probably see Zamir White, maybe even Rashad White. Isaiah Spiller will be either drafted round 1 or round 2 in Dynasty Fantasy Football. So lots of round 2 running backs will be drafted in this upcoming draft here. When it comes to Dynasty Fantasy Football, of course. So total players, 31. So not as many as round 1. It does seem to tail off a little bit here, but 19%. So 1 out of 5 actually become an RB1, which You're thinking, well, I like immediately I start thinking, okay, Michael Carter, Antonio Gibson. Like I'm starting to think of these round 2 running backs. Even Antonio Gibson, who I think talent wise is super talented, but it seems like Washington hates him. And does he ever end up actually becoming that RB1 stud? I don't know. I'm starting to have some major concerns of that. Michael Carter, who I know is a hot name right now, but I have him pretty low, like a lot lower in my rankings than most. Because I think the Jets are going to draft another running back, and that I think will kind of stick Michael Carter into RB2 category, which is 35% of the time you're going to get a RB2, which, if anything, this tells you after round 1, when you get to round 2, you have 19%, 35%, and then 52% chance that you're going to have an RB3. So if you're looking at an RB3, there's going to be a lot of these like Kyron Williams or Rashad White, and a lot of times why I like them even James Cook. I like the pass catching back because you're going to see a lot of in half-point PPR. You're going to see the Nyheim Hines, the James Whites. You're not going to have the high upside, but you're going to have these years. I mean, the best you could probably hope for is Danny Woodhead. But the best you're probably going to see is these RB 25 seasons, even maybe flirting to RB2 status, then down to 30, 35. Be great for a couple of weeks of the season. Be a good fill-in. Have that kind of safety. Even Brandon Bolden was a running back that I had in Dynasty in a super, super deep league. And it seemed like he had 4 or 5 catches a game, and it was a player that was fantasy relevant. And that's what we care about. So our round 2 status, if this shows you anything, really, I think sometimes we overvalue round 2 picks. And I think a lot of times people start reaching for round 2 running backs too early, or they start thinking, oh my goodness, I have 203. I'm going to take James Cook because there's a super great chance that he's going to be an RB2. But really, there's a 35% chance that he's going to be an RB2. Like, the chances of him being the next Antonio Gibson are super unlikely compared to him being the next chance of being, I guess I was trying to think of a pass-catching running back in round 2 of last year. But I'll just say Kylan Hill or something like that. Well, he'll have better draft capital than Kylan Hill. But you get what I'm saying. Like, the chances are that they're going to be more of a bust than they are going to be actually fantasy relevant for your team. Round 3, let's just go through it. This includes 2021, of course. So 1 running back has reached RB1. You have 3 that reached RB2 status, so that's 9%, 3%, 9%, and then 22% that reached round 3. When you get to round 3, you are really looking for next Elijah Mitchell, next James Robinson, and some of those running backs were even drafted later than that. It's really, you're just kind of throwing major darts at the dartboard. The chances are really, really not good. They're just not. I mean, we have to come to the honesty of conclusion of that. So what does this tell me in general? It tells me that running backs, at least in round 1, have a really good chance of succeeding. And of course, we already knew that. That's why running backs a lot of times are the top picks in 1 QB leagues and close to the top picks in Superflex. And why a lot of times when I have a tiebreaker, and we'll see if analytics comes to fruition here, but that's why a lot of times when it's a tie between running back and wide receiver, and why I'm actually changing my Dynasty rankings, which I'll talk to you guys about next week, about how I'm moving a player up a spot because of the tiebreaker. But a lot of times I will take that running back over the wide receiver. We talked about a couple days ago the immediate production that running backs have, and we talked about the successful ADP we'll talk about wide receivers, but 41, 64, 77% chance. There's a 77% chance that I'm at least going to have an RB3. There's a 64% chance, so 2/3 of the time, I'm going to at least have an RB2 as a round 1 drafted running back, which, I mean, you can sometimes see those grenades, the 1 on a 3. The Darius Geis one was tough, but you can sometimes see the Bishop Shankies. You can see some of these bust potential running backs where you're like, I want to stay away from that. I've never been a huge Cam Akers fan. Does Cam Akers end up being a successful running back? Maybe not. Like CEH, we thought was going to be a successful running back, and maybe he doesn't become a successful running back. That might be one of the bigger shocks. But 1 out of 3 chance that you're going to have this bust. And then 41% of the time, you're going to have a stud. You're going to have a RB1. And if you have an RB1, their value it's dramatic. There's only 12 of them. And a lot of them are going to be the same players. How many times is JT going to be a RB1 in the next couple of years? I mean, you guys' career, probably pretty good. I mean, we even talk about DeAndre Swift, which I talk about the free jersey here. He has not become an RB1 yet in his career. So an RB1 is super valuable. We look at Najee Harris. His value is super high. We want Javonte Williams to be an RB1, but he did not reach RB1 status his rookie year. So we look at a lot of these running backs. 41% are going to be RB1s at some point in their career, and that is where you can sell for the masses. That's where you can take these running backs and flip them for wide receiver plus. And when you flip them for wide receiver plus, that is where my dynasty strategies come in. All right? So again, this is Marcus Dynasty with Dads. We're going to talk about wide receivers tomorrow. So then we can at least settle some debates here. All right. We'll see you tomorrow, guys.
Now turn up.